And now, one of Dr. Watt's beloved sons, Michael.
Good evening. On behalf of my brother Chris, who's here tonight, I have to humbly thank you, Morehouse College, President Wilson, I'm going to forget some names, Provost Sheftall, Dean Lawrence Carter, Robert Bolton, and everyone who have made this event possible. All of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart, from our hearts. I truly appreciate it. And don't worry, this is only half my speech, don't worry. How does a woman like my mother do what she does so well for so long and still have more left to give? How does she do it? To answer that question, you must know who she is. She's a preacher's kid, which means she is a well-grounded Christian woman. She's the only daughter of two parents who reared her kids the old-fashioned way. She has three brothers. Growing up with three brothers, she learned how to survive as a woman in a man's world. But it was the woman of that house, her mother, who taught her that as a woman, she would always have to work twice as hard, twice as long, and be twice as smart as a man in order to go far and survive in this man's world. Those seeds my grandmother planted are at the root of the woman my mother has become. My mother has a lot of titles and degrees behind her name, along with the Latin words summa cum laude. She was valedictorian of her class at Grambling State University, and it was fate that she would one day coach Morehouse College seniors on their valedictory and salutatory speeches. She has 2 master's degrees, including a master's in French. My mother was hired as an instructor in the English department here at Morehouse by Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays toward the end of his term as president. She first taught under incoming president Hugh Morris Gloucester. She was a young teacher, not bad looking either. And what happened when this young teacher walked into a classroom of young men? They gave her hell. Or at least they tried. Fortunately, she was married, and my father was nearby. But she could handle her students. She knew who she was and why she was there, so it wasn't long before she had their utmost respect. We lived on campus in a faculty housing on Fair Street that would later become known as the Triplex. It was a tight community of her colleague friends who lived on campus and came over for dinner parties regularly. As my brother and I began to grow up, my family moved into another house off campus. My mother was a full-time career mom, co-head of a household full of men. She went to work, she came home, she cooked, she cleaned, washed dishes, and then graded papers on the kitchen table. How did she do it? She taught back-to-back classes, maintained office hours, helping students grasp grammar, literature, proper intonation in public speaking, and she still took me and my brother to baseball practice on time. How did she do it? She taught summer school to make extra money, often doing without things for herself, just so her 2 sons could go to private school and have the best education possible. How did she do it? My mother typed her PhD dissertation on a manual typewriter. She had help of a typist, but it was a grueling few years from her writing it to preparing it for presentation. I'll never forget the day I piled into the back seat of her 70s model Toyota Corona in the Brawley Hall parking lot, and I accidentally stepped on a stencil of one of her dissertation pages. The damage was enough that she'd have to type that page again from scratch. She cried her eyes out as we drove away. As a kid, I felt the pain she went through. I knew how much her doctorate meant to her, and it allowed me to appreciate at a young age all the sacrifices she made for me and my family. Brawley Hall was like a second home for me and my brother. We were constantly in her office, roaming the halls, waiting for Mom to get off work and so we could go home. I knew every inch of this campus by the time I was in high school. I had attended commencement a zillion times. I knew the Morehouse College hymn by heart. You might imagine it natural that I would graduate high school and go on to Morehouse. Nah, not me. After spending 18 years of my life eating and breathing these halls, Morehouse was the last place on earth I wanted to go to college. But my mother had the last word. One night at home, she sat me down and broke down all the reasons why, as a young black male, I needed to go to Morehouse and that Morehouse would be an excellent experience for me. I wasn't really buying it, but she promised that if I didn't like it after my first year, that she would transfer me out to another college. I never took her up on that promise. I spent 4 of the best years of my life at Morehouse with my new name, Dr. Watt's son. I was proud to be Dr. Watt's son, though it took some getting used to. Being Dr. Watt's son had its perks, like cutting in front of students waiting outside her office to see her, or having a car at my disposal to use between classes or after my classes were over. She was always there when I needed her. And I also know secretly that she relished my decision to change my major to English. By the time I graduated Morehouse, her talents outside the classroom were being recognized in ways that made me proud. She was promoted to class dean, still continuing to teach her oh-so-popular public speaking course. Over the years, she rose up the ranks of academic affairs to become the highest-ranking woman in the college. At one time, she was third in command behind the president and the provost. How did she do it? My mother developed a roadmap for students to be competitive for national scholarships and fellowships, and she has helped produce 3 Rhodes Scholars, a Marshall Scholar, and several Fulbright Scholars for Morehouse College. Wow, she did that. How does a woman receive that much responsibility and accomplish so much at a college designed for and run by men? That's my mother. Many students have called her Mother Morehouse, or the cosmic mother of Morehouse College. But she has truly been a mother to us all, and my brother and I have been glad to share our mother with so many other sons of Morehouse. She has mentored and inspired countless Morehouse men, and she selflessly has given her time and love to her family and friends. She wrote the speeches and rehearsed the student presenters, like the ones you just saw a few minutes ago, who would deliver those speeches at Morehouse's annual fundraiser. But if my brother called and needed something, she was right there. She directed the Morehouse College Summer Academy every summer in these recent years, overseeing over 20 concurrent programs on campus, all while ensuring that her aging mother, all the way in Louisiana, had the best care possible during the last years of her life. How did she do it? Certainly by the grace of God, and with God as the center of her life. My mother and I talk on the phone regularly. I have asked her periodically how she's done so much for so many and still kept it together all these years. She has often said, "I don't have a choice. Michael, I don't have a choice." In these same late-night conversations, she has dropped metaphors, made scholarly references, quoted literature centuries old. I'm on the phone like, how do you remember this stuff? Like, how does she do that? Like, I don't get it, you know? I've honestly been in awe of my mother for most of my life. She is the smartest woman I know. In spite of her accomplishments, I wanted her to retire years ago. I wanted the rest of the world to hear what she had to say and learn from her vast knowledge and expertise. Finally, after 40-something years of service to others, this is her time. This is her time to let the rest of the world see her light. This is her time to consult, hit the speaking circuit, hopefully write that book she's been talking about. Yet, we are richer for the legacy she leaves behind. From commencement and presidential inaugurations to crown forums and convocations, her influence lives on, deeply embedded in modern-day Morehouse traditions. But her most powerful legacy lives on in the students and alumni she has influenced in some small way. She lives by this motto: if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody how they're traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. That's my mother. That's who she is. How does she do it? The question is merely rhetorical when you see where she's come from and the path she has traveled along the way. And just when you think it can't get any better, she outdoes herself. And then it's like, how did she do that? She continues to outdo herself. She makes it all look so easy, doesn't she? But trust me when I tell you, she works extremely hard for Morehouse College and her students. And she wouldn't have it any other way. So, Mother, I still don't know how you do it. But I'm so very glad that you do. Thank you.
Some of you have not met her younger son, Christopher. Why don't you stand up again, Chris, and let them see you.